Hi, everyone. Welcome to another segment of Mental Health Moments. My name is Linda Golick. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Consultant at Bellin Health. So happy to have all of you here with us. I know December is a busy month for many with holidays and end of the year. So really appreciate you taking some time today. And I think we all appreciate a little extra dose of emphasis on our mental health this time of year. So today, our special guest is Dina Braun. Dina is a team leader over at our Bellin Psychiatric Center. How you doing, Dina?
Good. Thank you for having me today.
Always happy to have you, Dina. I know that Charles really enjoys having you on as well. And as always, our licensed behavioral health therapist, our regular on this program, Charles Latour. Charles, how are you?
I'm very good. Thanks, Linda. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. So
Great.
already it is December 8th. The month is flying by. I'm working on content for January and February, which tells me that the year is almost over. And we really thought that we would spend today talking about all things having to do with the holidays. We want to talk a little bit about nutrition. We want to talk about stress management. We want to talk about dealing with families and all the fun things that maybe come along with the season. And I wanted to start out today, if that's okay, Charles. I thought we could start with the video. Charles found this awesome video that I think is really going to set the tone for our discussion today. So I'm going to share that and then we will talk about it.
Order! Faster! Keep your hands up! Hands up!
Hi, fellas. Do you think we could do something about this?
Up! Punch! And dog! Good. Get. Knock! Dude!
Oh, no, thank you.
Go! Go! One and two and one!
Nice.
Yes!
Yeah. Let's do it. We got you a little something.
Merry Christmas.
Love that video. It just makes me smile. And Charles, when I first watched that video, it so brought me back to because I spent over 20 years coaching for Weight Watchers, and so we had a lot of discussions surrounding the holidays and weight gain and nutrition and fitness and all of those things. So that really brought me back to that time. But what was it about that video, Charles, that you wanted that you were drawn to it, that you wanted to share it with this group on the session today?
Yeah, well, those are actually two different things. What first drove me to it is I'm really big on the power of story, personal narrative. Who you are is who you think you are, and sometimes we in life live up to that. Other times we don't. And part of the theme of bringing it to this group is I think it ties into so much of what this has been about since it started. I think the very first program we did, I put forth the question, how do you want to see yourself getting through this? What's your vision of you after this is over? How did I get through it? Was I the person that I thought I wanted to be, or was I somebody different? What's my vision, and can I set that? And now, even today with this, it's these last couple weeks, this theme has been there. So many people, meeting after meeting, these last couple weeks have been like, what we always do, the gifts I always buy, why I buy these, the traditions we have. And there's beauty in traditions, right? We do certain traditions because they're so great. And there's other traditions, though, these last couple of weeks that people have told me, like, why is it that way anyway? Why are we doing this? And people, I don't want to have to go to this person. I don't want to. And why do we do it? It's because, well, I don't know. Is there another way to do it? So, and I saw this and it reminded me, like, does Santa really have to be way overweight? Does Santa have to eat every cookie that's not nailed down? Does Santa have to be the most unfit person that we could picture? And does Santa even want to be that way? And that if that narrative can be rewritten, any of our narratives can be rewritten. And the one other thing that I want to say is that in that narrative, for so many people, the narrative of the holiday is, and I hear this quote, this isn't my word for it, well, I'll be bad for the next 3 weeks and then I'll be good after the first. I'll eat anything not nailed down, the cookies, the cakes, the whatever's there, because that's what the holidays are for. And that after the holidays, New Year's is when I'll start doing something good for me. I'm thinking, does it really have to be that way? That's a narrative I think that we could change as well. Doesn't mean we can't enjoy certain things over the holidays, but it does mean that we can watch with some careful quality about what it is that we're doing with and for ourselves and with others, that it doesn't have to be quite the narrative that we've bought into, and we could change the narrative before the new year rather than waiting until after it, which, by the way, sometimes for a lot of people is too late. I've I've I overdid it so much. Now I think I'm past the point of no return. But Santa showed us that in that it was tough at first, but we could do it. So those are some of the reasons, other ones, but they're not worth getting into. But I just kind of really liked it.
Well, and I love your message of changing that narrative, right? So sometimes when things come to the end of the year and we have these holidays things going on, we have these expectations that we put up and we think, well, it just has to be this way. Like I have to overeat and I have to skip my time in the gym and I have to be annoyed by relative XYZ. And I think it's a really important message to say it doesn't have to be that way. We can change something. And certainly I saw that in my work back when I was working at Weight Watchers. People can change and they can be different when they decide to. And even Santa could do it. So if Santa can give up all those cookies and stay away from most of them, so can we. Dina, what were your thoughts on that video?
I love that video because I'm one of those people that is I eat everything. And well, if anybody knows me, I have the biggest sweet tooth ever. Like I have a candy drawer in my office. I always have sweets. So I'm the one that does not have self-control around sweets. So like we've already bought the chocolate covered pretzels at our house. And I really try to go around the cookie jar so I don't stop at it because I really don't need those pretzels, but they're there and they're good. So I eat them. Um, for like my family or my husband and I, we used to get so stressed out about Christmas. We'd leave Green Bay at like 8 in the morning and not get back to Green Bay till midnight. And probably about 9 years ago, we changed our narrative. We either go away on the week before Christmas, or we just spend it together here and not travel. And we've had the best Christmases since we've changed that.
There is one thing I want to say, and I can vouch for Dina. Dina is amazing. I won't even go into a story or two that I was going to tell, even about a luncheon we had here. That was the only thing I'll say about it. It was geared towards a healthy lunch, and Dina had to make an adjustment in that. So everything she's saying, I can more than support and vouch for. But I do want to use that word support as one other thing. I didn't want to go into too many of the things that I was thinking about, what I loved about the video. But here's what I love. So I already talked mostly about the Santa part, right? About changing my own personal narrative. But the other thing, one of the other things I loved was the collective narrative change. His wife's initial surprise when Santa wasn't in bed and she sees him out running. And then along the way, the support from the elves, helping work out, running with him, helping with the sit-ups and so forth. And then how supportive all along the way is like, we're going to support this change too. And as I always say, this whole game of life, right? None of us do it alone. So who is in it with us, whatever it is that we're doing, because that's going to help sustain the change in narrative, whatever that is too. So I think that's really, really important. And I think I love the way they brought it out in this video.
It really spoke to me in two different ways too when I think about it, because I think number one, sometimes people will be surprised when you decide to make some kind of a life change, and that might be something simple. It might be something, more complicated that you're doing with your life. Sometimes people in their lives are a little bit surprised. So Santa's wife was a little bit surprised that he was out running in the morning. Right. So sometimes we have to prepare ourselves for that people in our lives might have to take a step back and say, what are you doing? What
Yeah,
did you say,
really?
Linda? Right?
You're doing this?
Right.
Yeah. Like the elf, the first day when he walks in, and the elf is like, what are you doing here? Right? That kind of look and everything. So, yeah, we have to be prepared and, and then willing to accept the support and nurturing as it happens. So, yeah, great point, Linda.
Yeah, and then also it's an evolution then of taking on that new identity. And sometimes that's where people get a little bit stuck because it's so easy for us to go back to the person we always were, go back to the habits that we always had. And that's a transition. That's not something that happens immediately. So I think it's important for people to know that and kind of be aware of that, on the journey.
Yeah.
So we also wanted to kind of talk about today, we really want all of you to reflect on what you have going on this holiday season. And we want to help you determine what types of things you want to focus on, how you're going to take care of yourself, what's going to be important to you. So the first thing we wanted you to chat in is what works well for you. So in terms of getting through the holiday season, happy, healthy, as productively as you can, as happy as you can, and as good a state of mind as you can. What works well for you? And we'd love for you to chat those in. And I think for myself, I just wanted to share that what has really worked well for me, especially I'd say in the last like 7-8 years, and every year I go a little bit further on this, is to simplify. So every year, I just really look at how I can simplify things. And I really just do the things as much as possible that I really want to do. So if I don't feel like hanging up a bunch of Christmas decorations, I don't. Some years I do, some years I don't. If I don't feel like making it to the same light display that I went to the year before, then I don't. So I try to simplify it, try to simplify gifts, try to simplify baking, some of those things that tend to kind of stress us out. I just try to make those simple. So we'd love to hear from you on what works for you. So Maureen has having some me time. So important. So important. Diane says giving more to those in need and making presents less of a focus at home. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that. I think the present thing could be a whole discussion, Charles, because there's people that are really gift givers and there's people that aren't. And sometimes that can cause some conflicts at the holidays. But Charles, what do you want people to pay attention to when it comes to figuring out what works well for them?
Yeah, just the mindful awareness to even to know that, like what does, even the people who had chimed in on those, knowing me time works for me, knowing that simplifying things works for me, knowing what those things are is important, and then a commitment to do them. Um, and everybody's situation is different, but I have found that knowing what works for you in and of itself is a journey and a reward unto itself. That when you can get to that place and then make a commitment to do it, because what we're at, if we're not doing that and we lose that autonomy of doing for us what we need to, the holidays become just this big rush to buy what we feel has to be bought, pick out the perfect gift, do this, do that. And it's the thing that I always call running at the speed of life without really knowing what it is to you. And I know for me, the most important thing in it is knowing what they mean to me to begin with and how I value them is the game changer in it. So it starts with Thanksgiving. So being attuned and connected to the gratitude part of it, that what am I really happy, grateful, appreciative for at this time, I think kicks off the holiday season. Then Christmas, I think, is about, and again, it's different for everybody, but for me, it's about, I once heard this comment that it was about the ability to accept the darkness with light, and that the darker the days are, the darker the nights are. And I'm saying day and night because the day becomes dark much more quickly, obviously, in December than it does in June. So it's appreciating the darkness of what we have so we can more greatly appreciate the light. And the lights are always around us at Christmas time, adding brilliance to the darkness that comes. And it's also a time of, I also read this, that it's about forgiveness. You know, forgiving what with grace, what's happened throughout the year, self-forgiveness as well as grace and forgiveness of others. Um, and then the last thing is a welcoming into a new year, welcoming all that's possible, all that's an opportunity, all that lies ahead, and what the new year may have in store for you and what you have in store for the new year. So I think those sorts of things from a mentality standpoint, approaching them psychologically, I know has helped me and other people. So again, I think it all comes down to a psychological mindset of how we approach it. And we impose with that mindset more of how we want it to go and how we want it to be rather than and make it what we want rather than worry about what's going to happen. And anytime we're in a psychological mindset of making happen what we would like to have happen rather than worrying about what will, we're in an immediately stronger psychological place to be, more expansive rather than worrying and restrictive. So when we have that mentality, we are mentally stronger.
Love that. Love that. Dina, what do you think? Any reflections on what Charles says, or I know you talked about previously what's working for you at Christmas. Any other thoughts on what works well for you, what you have found over the years?
I I kind of agree with you this year that when I dragged all my Christmas stuff down, I'm like, I really don't need all this to put all this up this year. So I took half of it back up to my attic. I loved what Charles said. I'm going to use that this year for sure. I used to get so stressed out about like I don't have kids, never had kids, so like buying like my nieces and nephews gifts would like stress me to no end. So now instead that we don't see them, I don't have I put the money I give for their gifts into the adoptive family, and I'd rather do that than have to be so stressed out about what I'm going to get for people. Are they going to like it? Are they not? Are they going to want to return it tomorrow? Like it's not worth it. I just like the more time I spend just how we peel back the layers every year, I'm liking the holidays more and more and more.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love that. I really think that people can feel empowered to make those choices. I was on a self-care webinar last week, and we were talking about simplifying, and that just made me think even more about what else can I simplify. And I too, Dina, sometimes drive myself crazy trying to find those gifts. And a few years ago, we decided to start college funds for our niece and nephews instead.
Nice.
And I know that maybe they don't get all of that right now, but I think one day when they're headed to college and we give them that, it's going to mean a lot. It's going to be something that we wanted to do for them, and that simplifies things at Christmas. It makes
Mhm.
things so much simpler. So we think about what does work for us, and we can reflect upon that and think about, yeah, that really worked well for me. I'm going to keep doing that. Oh, I feel best when I do this, and those types of things. What do we do when things aren't going well? When we are anticipating some challenges, something that we know isn't going well for us? Where do we start and how do we work on those things? What do you think, Charles?
Yeah, I think it really takes some careful personal assessment, self-appraisal, what is, what isn't. I always like to say we need to cultivate what's working, transform what isn't, rather than staying stuck in it. So I think the first part is being able to say, am I okay with this? is this really working for me or is it not? Is this bringing me more to the person I want to be or taking me more away from that? So, and there's all different things. And even knowing about the holidays, what is it about it that we love? And by the way, just as a sidebar, I love the holidays. I mean, I look so much forward to this. My wife may as well be Mrs. Claus. She is the most gung ho. The tree's got to be up. The ornaments have to go. Looks at ornaments all year long. Can't wait for it. Great food, great everything. She happens to be an amazing cook. Everything she makes is amazing. It's wonderful. And I think the amazing thing about the holidays is that just even knowing that that isn't that way for everybody. There's so much pressure that comes with the holidays that, especially if they're pressures that are not the type that we may embrace, there's this expectation that everybody's home is like a Hallmark Channel Christmas story, and that every gift will be perfect, and that every food will turn out exactly right. Every travel we make from point A to point B will be great, and that everybody has somebody that they're going to be with. And I can tell you from personal experience, day in and day out, right here in my office, that is not the case. The people who just can't wait for this season to be over and everything go back to the way it is before it. Um, and even people who love the spiritual part but can't stand the overly commercialized part is that, can we not play Christmas music from August on? Do I not have to see ads for Christmas before our kids go back to school? You know, there's so many different things that I think for people that way aren't working. But then there's the ones within us. Do we have to do the gifts the way that we have? Similar to what you were saying. What's the narrative we can create rather than hold on to the narrative that we had? There was a person just last week telling me that the worst part about the holidays was something he had loved 35 years ago and instituted with his family and had loved it for 20 years. But for the last 10 to 15, it had been the most problematic part. And it was this thing that we all had to make certain things for somebody else. And they started making these things like in May, June, and July just to get it done for Christmas. And he felt terrible about wanting to change that. And I said, for all you know, you're in here telling me that. For all you know, the other family members are somewhere telling someone else, this has gone on too long. We need to do something different. It's become so stressful for us rather than so beneficial for us. So being able to take stock of what's working, what isn't, what's good for you, what isn't, what's making you enjoy and embrace and love what the holidays are about, rather than making you dread them. When you have that careful analysis, and I think of it as it takes some honesty, some authenticity, some reflection to be able to even go through that exercise of, is this making me and us more who we want to be? Or is this an exercise just in the fact that it's been what we've been doing and has it worked for the last 10 years? Just like Santa, maybe it's time to change that.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point, Charles, and that sometimes it is time to change it. And we heard that in Dina's story, and that, you know, what she was doing was really just exhausting and wasn't working, and she decided to make a change. So I think sometimes, as much as traditions are wonderful and we hold on to our traditions and we cherish them, we also have to be open that sometimes those traditions do need to evolve and change. And it's helpful for everybody if we take that step. So Dina, what are your thoughts on that, as far as, you know, being open to changing things, and what did that look like for you?
The first couple years, I would be honest, I felt guilt about not seeing our families. But as time went on, it got easier and easier. Um, I just, the less stress just overrode everything that we were going through. Now we have our own traditions. We have Chinese on Christmas Eve, probably because they're the only place open. And then we go drive to Oconto and go through, I don't know the name of the campground, but they got lights all over. We'll drive through that. Then on Christmas Day, we open our presents. When our hockey players get back on the 26th, we have a little Christmas with them. This year, our tree is basically baseball players, hockey players, and dogs. So, like this year, one of our players was looking at the Christmas tree and he's like, I made the Christmas tree. Let's go. I'm like, okay, that's my Christmas right there. He was just so excited to see a little hockey guy on the tree with his name on. And I'm like, okay, that made my whole Christmas.
Well, what I
I
love
gotta
about that,
say something. Can I jump in on one thing, Dina? I love that so much. That is so super cool. You made so many great comments in there. The one I want to double click on though is that, and it ties into what I was saying earlier in that self-reflection, self-assessment of why am I even doing this? If it's coming out of a place of sparking joy and sparking love and splendor and wonder, and we go and see this and it's fantastic, that's as great as it gets, right? But when it's out of your assessment was, if I'm doing it out of guilt, that's how we know it's probably not great for us. If guilt is why I'm doing this, that's part of the assessment of maybe the narrative can be altered. But when it's out of joy and love, and we can't wait to go and see this, and it's part of what we do, and the athletes are tying into that as well and finding the great joy, I think that's the differentiator that makes all the difference in the world.
Mhm.
and Carla had commented too in the chat. I try to stop when I'm feeling pressured to do something out of fear, obligation, or guilt. And I think that's a great call out.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That's right in keeping with this. If it's obligatory, and even some of them we may have to do, but if there's pressure, but whenever that's going on, it's probably taking us away from how we want to feel rather than more of how we want to feel. So those are great, great shout outs.
Awesome. And then someone else also commented, it's Holtwood Campground Winter Wonderland. That must be the one, Dina.
Is that it, Dina?
Yeah, it's like right on a river. And all the businesses there, even Bellin has a little campsite that they put some decorations up. It's just really cool. It's really relaxing. In the past, we would throw our dogs in the car, have them go with us. It's just beautiful. And if there's a little snow on the ground, that's just icing on the cake.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, feel free to keep chatting in those things that are working for you. We want to hear more of those. Also, if you have questions for us, we'd love to hear your questions as well. Here is your free question to the therapist available for you right now. So put it in there. We'll talk about it. But as we wait for that, any other thoughts, Charles? Other thoughts on the holidays and how to help people manage? And then before we go into that final wrap up, I did just want to put a plug in. Mary Lou Conard, who is the director over at the Bellin Psychiatric Center, she was on my latest podcast for the month of December. Our lifesaver topic was family ties and some of the some of the coping strategies for maybe some family conflicts that happen at that time of year. And it is a season where there can be extra bouts of depression and anxiety and things like that. And Mary Lou just gave us some really great information and some additional ideas to cope with that. So that is the Bellin Health Prescription for Life podcast. You can look that up on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can also find a link at bellin.org/lifesaver. So feel free to look that up as well, because that's just a great little short podcast that I thought was really great to have Mary Lou on there. So Charles, as we wrap up, what are your thoughts as we head into the rest of this season?
I love this quote by the Grinch, which was, "Help me, I'm feeling." Right? I think that was, in his mind, the Grinch, awful, but for all of us, it's human. To have the feelings that we have, the range of emotions that we have, the gladness, the joy, the brilliance of what the holiday season may bring, being open to it, having our hearts open to it, knowing what's working for us and what isn't, being authentic with ourselves, accepting the support. To me, at the end of the year and the literal day of Christmas, and as it brings us to the end of the year, it's all about connection. It's that, understanding who we are and who is most important to us and who we're most important to. So I remember this great exercise that I did as part of a training. It's always stuck with me, and it helps us connect to who's most important in our lives. And the first part of it is being able to reflect really about you and the people in your lives who got you to where you are, wherever you are today. Who were those people that made you, helped you be who you are, brought you to where you are today? And then the second part of that is, if someone of the people who were asked to do that same exercise, how many of those people would say that you were one of those people who got them to where they are? And that connection is the strength and importance in your life and helping you be who you want to be, and thankful for those who got you to that place. So I think when we could do reflections, I like to do around the holidays something like that all the time. This self-reflection of where I'm at, am I being who I want to be? I saw this great quote not long ago that it said, "Always be the person that your dog thinks you are," right? So how are we on our journey to be our best selves? Is the narrative we have taking us to that place every day, closer and closer, or is it taking us further away? And that this time is a time to understand all of that and the cracks that we all may have, because as another great poet once said, we all have cracks. That's how the light comes in. And this is the time of year for the lights to come in and help us be our best despite the faults that we have due to our own imperfections, and that it's also a time of spiritual reflectiveness as well. So to me, if we're doing any of those things on any meaningful level, we are becoming even more the person we want to be, and appreciating those and valuing those who are helping us on that journey to where we want to go. So those are my reflections on the holiday season.
Great. Thank you so much, Charles. Dina, any final thoughts on the season as we go into it?
All I want to say is I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and just may it be relaxing and non-stressful for everyone.
Thank you so much for that, Dina. I did just have one question that popped up. Let me read this and see where we can go with this. So Tammy wrote in, "I've been really struggling this year because traditions that have meant so much to me seem to be the things that others have easily let go of not just holidays, but family reunions, etc. And I've been feeling like I want to unpack this, but I'm unsure if it's worth it. Any thoughts on that, Charles or Dina? So struggling because traditions that mean a lot to her, it sounds like others are letting go of. Thoughts on that?
Dina, you
I'll
want to
let
go
Charles
first?
take that one.
You want me to say it? All right, so let me just make sure I heard it first right. Is struggling with, because I can't see that, but it's the struggling with traditions that I still want to continue, but others have let go of.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really tough one. I think there's, in the short answer to it, I could go on and on with this one, I think, but I think that the the hardest part is acceptance, right? I still want to do it, but others aren't on board. I think there's a couple different ways you could go. One is there a way that I could still do it, even though not everybody's going to join me in what it is? Some there may be, some maybe not so feasible. The other one is being able to, I think part of what the overriding message today has been is as great as it is, and if you could keep it up on any level, that's wonderful too. But sometimes the power in starting a new one, and what I mean about that as we go to the next year, is the openness to opportunities that welcome us into what can be different, and having some openness in your heart and mind to where that can take you is a great place to be able to be at as well. And I guess the last thing I'd want to say is it ties into part of what I was thinking earlier. The stress that we have of fear, and I forget who you said was it Carla? I think you said Carla.
Mhm.
When we're in a place of fear of what we have to let go of, that is a more difficult place than when we are invested in where we want to go. So the stress of fear, like even if we were thinking of grades, like failing a grade, what if I get an F? The fear of getting an F has a different toll on us than the favorable outlook of wanting to get an A and the stress of that. So the idea is that when we're going for something that is important to us, rather than the fear of something happening to us, we are in a more mindset of strength as well. So, and if that's going for a new tradition, seeing what is possible for us rather than what we're losing, if we can point our mental mind's needle as a catalyst in that direction for the possibility of what's to come rather than what we're losing, we're hopefully going to be better off as well. And maybe one of the other themes of today is that hopefully for all of you, have a great holiday season, both with the traditions that have been there as well as ones you will create in the future, and that you'll all go for whatever it is that you want to go for in life, not just to end the year, but to start the new one in an opportunistic, welcoming, overly welcoming way. So, yeah, I hope that helps.
Great information, Charles. Thanks so much for that. Hopefully that is helpful. So thanks again to all of you for joining us today. We certainly appreciate your attendance throughout the year. We're excited about some content we're going to be bringing you in 2023. Just a little programming note, in January, we're going to be on the third Thursday of the month rather than the second. So we'll actually be on January 19th. So you can mark your calendars, and an invitation will be coming as well. So Dina, Charles, thank you so much for being with us today and helping us, reflect on this time of year and help people have the most joyous holiday season that they can. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
and
you for
happy
having me.
holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas. We'll see you in the new year.